Shamed Andrew's Royal Lodge rent deal forces investigation into royal home leases. It has been announced that the Public Accounts Committee, Parliament's spending watchdog, is set to launch an inquiry into the Crown Estate following revelations about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's lease of his Royal Lodge home. Shamed Andrew Mountbatten Windsor faces being booted out of Royal Lodge with no compensation due to the extent of repairs needed, officials have revealed. The disgraced former prince looks set to lose £500,000 after surrendering the lease on the property to go and live on the King's private Sandringham estate after being stripped of his titles following revelations about his association with paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. It comes as today it was confirmed that an investigation is to be launched into the Crown Estate and leases it has granted for homes held by other members of the royal family after MPs demanded answers on Andrew's lucrative rent deal for the Windsor mansion. There was outrage when it emerged Andrew paid £1 million for a 75-year lease of the Grade 2 listed Royal Lodge mansion in 2003, and since then, he paid £1 peppercorn of rent if demanded per year. It forced the public spending watchdog, the Public Accounts Committee, dubbed the Queen of Select Committees, to demand answers from both the Treasury and Crown Estate, asking them to explain Andrew's lucrative lease. Profits from the Crown Estate are given to the Treasury for public spending, and questions had mounted over whether the taxpayer was missing out due to the deal. Today, the committee, which looks into whether taxpayers' money is being wisely spent, published details of the property arrangements provided by Crown Estate Chief Executive Dan Labid. It shows that Andrew gave the minimum 12 months notice that he would surrender Royal Lodge on October 30th, meaning he could stay there until October next year. It also shows that if no end of tenancy repairs were required, Andrew would have been entitled to £488,342. 21 for ending his tenancy on October 30, 2026. But the Crown Estate said that following an inspection of the property on November 12, it was thought unlikely that any compensation will be paid. It said, "Our initial assessment is that while the extent often of tenancy dilapidations and repairs required are not out of keeping with a tenancy of this duration, they will mean in all likelihood that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor will not be owed any compensation for early surrender of the lease, once dilapidations are taken into account," the Crown Estate said. But before this position can be fully validated, however, a full and thorough assessment must be undertaken post-occupation by an expert in dilapidation. In publishing these responses, the Public Accounts Committee fulfills one of its primary purposes to aid transparency in public interest information, as part of its overall mission to secure value for money for the taxpayer. Having reflected on what we have received, the information provided clearly forms the beginnings of a basis for an inquiry. The National Audit Office supports the scrutiny function of this committee. We now await the conclusions the NAO will draw from this information, and plan to hold an inquiry based on the resulting evidence base in the new year. It comes as it also emerged that Andrew is also unlikely to receive any compensation for giving up his crumbling Royal Lodge home because of the repairs that will be needed to the 30-room mansion. The true state of Royal Lodge emerged as the Public Accounts Committee revealed it would be holding an inquiry into the Crown Estate and the leases it has agreed with other members of the royal family. The Crown Estate also provided MPs with details of other properties occupied by senior royals, including the Prince and Princess of Wales' new home, Forest Lodge, which was leased on appropriate market terms. It said William and Kate, who moved into their property with their children in the October half-term, hold a 20-year non-assignable lease with the Crown Estate for Forest Lodge, commencing the 5th of July 2025, and have open market rent. This contrasts with Andrew's peppercorn rent for Royal Lodge. William made an approach, and after discussions with the royal household, the Crown Estate Commissioners were asked to consider the lease of the Grade 2 listed mansion for William and Kate for use as their primary private residence. Committee Chairman Sir Geoffrey Clifton Brown said, "We would like to thank the Crown Estate Commissioners and Home Treasury for their considered responses to our questions. In publishing these responses, the Public Accounts Committee fulfills one of its primary purposes, to aid transparency in public interest information, as part of its overall mission to secure value for money for the taxpayer." Having reflected on what we have received, the information provided clearly forms the beginnings of a basis for an inquiry. The National Audit Office supports the scrutiny function of this committee. We now await the conclusions the NAO will draw from this information, and plan to hold an inquiry based on the resulting evidence base in the new year. The date of the first evidence session has not yet been announced, and it is unclear whether Andrew or other members of the royal family could be called to appear before them. Dan Labid, chief executive of the Crown Estate, said, "We very much welcome the news of the committee's inquiry. We have provided detailed answers to the committee's questions to date and look forward to working with the NAO and responding to further questions to support the inquiry process." At the end of October, the king officially stripped his disgraced brother Andrew of his HRH style and his prince title, and removed his dukedom from the roll of the peerage over his serious lapses of judgment. The move followed the publication of a posthumous memoir by Andrew's accuser, Virginia Giuffre, and the U.S. government's release of documents from Epstein's estate. It emerged that Andrew had emailed Epstein in 2011 saying, "We're in this together," 3 months after he claimed he had broken all contact with the pedophile. Andrew denies all wrongdoing.